Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast. RJ, I hope you had a good Christmas break there. I hope the Kraken had a good Christmas break, and I hope everybody listening to this had a good Christmas break.
Exactly. I had a great Christmas break, but I miss Kraken hockey, especially having to miss that last post game while being on a flight. Thankfully, it timed out really well, where the game just ended as the plane was about to take off. So I got to put a quick message in post game chat. I want to thank again Mike Sasquatch NHL for filling in for me there, doing a great job.
Yes, he did a fantastic job. Thanks again, Mike, for helping us out like that. It was really awesome. And thanks to the community also for giving him such a warm welcome on that post-game live as well. Everybody really excited to see him and did a great job there. RJ, we're going to be talking all sorts of stuff. We're going to be talking the point streak that the Kraken are currently on, talking about, you know, the new addition in Beniers Tatar and how he's been gelling with Matty Beniers, you know, is there a goaltender controversy brewing in Seattle? We'll get into all that kind of stuff. And of course, start off the news and notes segment with Winter Classic updates, because you've been there, you've seen the rink being built, you've talked with the NHL people. I mean, there's just so much. They finally gave us a schedule. Wow.
Can you believe it?
I still can't. I'm still like waiting for them to like change it all before I fly up there. But first, RJ, got to talk about Queen Anne Beer Hall, the wonderful sponsor of this podcast, just like they are each and every week, and remind everybody that, hey, we're going to be there for the Winter Hockey Hall on the 30th, December 30th. We don't know the exact time that we're going to be there because we're going to have to come over from some NHL activities. So everybody stay posted. You know, to the social channels and all that, and we'll let everybody know the time, but really excited to be able to meet up with some people over at the Queen Anne Beer Hall and share a pretzel with everybody.
Definitely. I mean, we're going to be talking about a lot of Winter Classic festivities, events, everything surrounding the game. And of course, Winter Hockey Hall is going to be a big part of that at the beer hall. We'll be coming from the media skate, so probably not going to be there before, you know, say 9 p.m. or so. But, you know, at that point, we'll get there. We'll get to hang out with everybody. And it's going to be a really great time.
Yep, definitely. Now, if you can't meet us at the beer hall, we're also going to be headed over to the Fan Fest on the 31st. Okay, and so that's, we were thinking we'll probably be there around 6 o'clock at the Fan Fest. Don't have an exact location for a meetup there yet because we need to see what it looks like and all that stuff, what's going on there. But we know it's going to be in the north parking lot at Lumen Field on the 31st. NHL Fan Fest for the Winter Classic. Going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be after the Seahawks game, so, you know, don't try to get there super early because you're just going to have to deal with a lot of Seahawks traffic. Unless you're going to the game, in which case get there for the game. Probably be
I mean, you can make a day out of it. If you go to the game, it'll get right out and you can go to the Fan Fest there. So we're going to try and get there as early as we can to maybe scope it out and find a good spot to meet with everybody. But yeah, we don't know what the layout's going to be. Stay tuned to our socials. I mean, look at, you know, Twitter, X, Instagram. We will post where we are and on our Discord too. I mean, if you're not on the Discord, you should be on the Discord. We will let everyone know also where we're going to be.
Yeah. Oh man, Discord's really popping off now that the World Juniors started, RJ. And everybody watching the World Juniors, following all 5 Kraken prospects there. Chalet with the hat trick today for Czechia. Pretty good stuff there. Told you, just get him out of Barrie. Get him with some players who can play. He's going to show up again.
Well, Dylan, it's against Norway. Does it count?
Yes, it counts. Did all those games against bad teams count for Connor Bedard last year when everybody was acting like he's got the most amazing World Juniors ever?
Well, I mean, did he actually? Okay, yeah, he did turn out to be good. Good point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All right, we're all good. I was gonna say when he was breaking records held by Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, I think.
And Jordan Eberle.
Yeah, see, so it's like you're batting 1,000 as far as this production translating to the NHL there. So I think it's good stuff. All right. There's going to be so much more World Junior talk later, but it's fine. Winter Classic, RJ, you have seen the rink. It exists. This isn't the NHL just pulling one over on us. It's actually there. It's being built at T-Mobile Park. What does it look like? What are your first impressions? How amazing is it? Because it's got to be so cool to see that.
It is pretty cool. And so the morning before I went to go see it, the NHL released a rendering of, you know, what it's supposed to look like on game day. And it looks really cool. it's a great rendering, but again, it doesn't have that feeling of just being there in person and kind of seeing it all take shape. But I got to see the rink in person, going to T-Mobile Park. And Dylan, let me tell you, this is going to be a really cool event. Now, the ice wasn't completed yet. They were just kind of putting up the boards. They had the little sheet below the ice getting ready, and they were still setting up a lot of the things. But you could kind of see where it was all going to take shape. I loved looking at the rendering right next to the construction and the work actually being done. And you could definitely, just the imagination hits you, right, with what this is going to feel like and look like on game day. And it's so cool. We got to see it with the roof off, with the roof retracted. And I'm telling you, I really hope the weather works out for this game, because you got to see it both ways. Actually, when we got there, the roof was retracted. And so you got to see, it was a great weather day, blue skies, everything, what it would look like then. And then they put the roof back over it kind of for the evening as it was getting colder and everything. It looks so much better with the roof off, Dylan. Like I can't communicate just how big the difference this is, roof on versus roof off. So I'm really hoping the weather works out.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, it makes sense, right? Roof off, it feels like an outdoor hockey game. It feels like there's, it's special and it's an event. Roof on, and it feels like, why is this rink so much bigger, and why is everybody sitting so much further away? Right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I guess that
feels like a
sense.
bigger arena. Yeah, it wouldn't feel nearly as special. So yeah, definitely fingers crossed on the weather. Hopefully all that works out. Looking at the render, RJ, let's talk about that for a little while here. I love the colors and everything that they've got going on for this. Like, it looks so cool. It looks so beautiful. I love, my favorite part about this, and then you could say your favorite part, is just that it's like built like a dock or a pier to take the players from the two clubhouses out and to the rink, to the bench. I still don't understand, RJ, why they always, I guess it's for broadcast reasons, but why they always have to build the benches on the far side of the rink from where the players come out, so the players have to walk like 1.5 miles to get to the bench. But I just think that aspect of it looks so cool. It's so Seattle. I really, really like that aspect of it, because that's not something that we've seen before at any other NHL outdoor game.
Right. And that's something that they definitely wanted to do, is kind of have that like water type element to it, because obviously you're going to lean into Seattle's maritime history and everything. And so there's going to be some kind of like water element. I mean, you can see on this rendering, like, the
It's
blue
like a
here.
map.
Right. And so Steve Meyer, who we got to talk to, who's kind of in charge of the whole rink building project, he was a little cryptic about, is like, there's going to be some real water. There's going to be some stuff that's like not actually water. It's going to be, wouldn't kind of tell us everything right away. But we'll kind of see how it looks closer to the game. But I mean, this rendering looks fantastic, having the dock kind of moving over towards it. I like the pirate ship in the back. There's going to be like a, shipwrecked kind of ship. They were only just building the base for it when I was there, so I didn't get to see the actual ship come together, but I'm interested to see what they can do with that. And that's something that Meyer did talk about, saying that because the outfield is higher up, so that's an important element to this game. The outfield is higher up than most outfields. The bleachers, I mean, in most ballparks. And so he says that's going to allow them to do a lot of different things that they couldn't do elsewhere, and kind of have some height to their displays. He said in other ballparks, they'd have to make sure to keep everything really low to the ground, and they couldn't do a whole lot of cool stuff in the outfield because you'd start blocking people's sight lines of the game. Whereas here, you're going to have a little bit more flexibility to play with. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that.
Yeah, and I really like that, the render, the big Kraken tentacle coming up around the ship there looks really dope. I am intrigued by that, and it is true. Like, that's something we can talk about, right? When we went to the one in Dodger Stadium, yeah, it was like, oh, they set up like a little beach volleyball place, and like they let people play there, and that was about it. Like, that was all they could really do. So it is intriguing here. I do wonder if the real water section, just looking at the render, is that little like pond next to the cabin, because there's like a cabin out there.
Oh yeah.
That's intriguing to me. The rest of the displays look like they have the same kind of map that's there in front of the rink, but I wonder if that'll be like a real pond next to that cabin, like a little ice fishing cabin or something there. I don't know what that's going to be.
So I'm looking at it right now as far as the picture that I took. and it looks kind of more flat. Maybe they could make it into a pond. It might be ice, actually. I think
Yeah, that would be
it hinted
cool.
that there might be a little like ice kind of pond with some like kids playing on it
That
or
would be
something like
fun.
that too. I think that's what that might be.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense.
But you mentioned it earlier, and I want to talk about T-Mobile Park as
Yeah.
just a venue for an outdoor game compared to other ballparks, compared to other maybe arenas that they've had. I mean, stadiums that they've had outdoor games in, and the higher outfield and the sight lines too, because that's something that we told people ahead of time. Given our experience at Dodger Stadium, the sight line, we sat in the outfield. The
Yeah.
sight lines were bad. We
Really
could
bad.
not see the game.
Yeah.
And one thing that really struck me from going in person and kind of seeing where the rink was going to be, the sight lines are going to be better than Dodger Stadium. They're going to be much better than Dodger Stadium. And I can say that with confidence now that I've been there. So I think that's an added plus. There's
Mhm.
just so much more height, more elevation, right, in the
Yeah.
stands at T-Mobile Park. And I think that's going to really help the viewing experience for fans. Look, it's not going to be as good as at Climate Pledge Arena, which is
Mhm.
built for this sort of thing. But I do think you're going to have a better chance of actually seeing the game a little bit. So I wanted to communicate that, because in the past we had said, like, don't expect to see really anything game wise. I think if you get enough elevation, if you're high up enough, you might have a good chance.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think here, vast majority of this is going to be elevated enough that you're going to be able to see that. So I am definitely excited for that. Excited for everybody who's going. My favorite part about this render, RJ, just if we're being real, the
Uh-huh.
the falling snow that they added to the sides and
It's
the
a little
top.
optimistic, right?
I just love that idea. They're still chasing that shootout right at the end of the Pittsburgh Buffalo one back in the day where it started snowing as Crosby goes in and scores.
That first one, I mean, I don't think anything will ever top that. Certainly not weather wise. I mean, that it was just brilliant. Like that,
Yeah.
the snow falling. You've got the game's best player, Sidney Crosby, going in and scoring. You cannot top that. I don't think you're going to see that in Seattle. Snow's certainly not on the forecast, but weather is worth talking about, though,
Yeah.
because weather, of course, impacts these games. They're outdoor games. It is a factor. Although I don't think it's going to be much of a factor in this one, really. So, talking with Steve Meyer, of course, he said that, look, forecast this far out. And again, it was last week that we were talking with him, so it was a ways to go. He said, someone sent me a forecast for January 1st, and I just laughed at it, because you just can't know that far ahead of time. He said, but I will say, the forecast was good. Like what
Hmm.
we're seeing, early indications are good weather for the game. But you never know. And with the roof, though, I just don't think it's going to really be a factor. He was asked about, kind of potential pitfalls with the quality of the ice or the rink or anything. And he said, honestly, so far, so good. We haven't really experienced any problems. And he said the roof was a big part of that. He said, I wish I could just take this roof and move it for every single rink build that I do, because if the weather ever becomes a problem, if you ever have any issues with the environment, you just put the roof up and there you go. You're set. You can keep working. You don't have to worry about delays, because other times outdoors, you just have to stop working. If it rains, you got to cover the rink and stop.
Yep.
Versus here, you can just kind of keep going nonstop. So it sounds like this is going a lot smoother than most rink builds.
Oh, gotta love that. And yeah, I gotta imagine that that'll translate to the ice. I mean, I'm looking at the 10-day RJ. Yeah, it doesn't, nothing as of now. Of course, we all know that that can change, but also the weather's gonna be cold, right? Like that's gotta be a big factor for this, right? That hasn't always happened and been the case for them for these outdoor games where they'll have to go and all of a sudden the weather turns and it's like getting close to like 70 and it's like that you can tell the ice is turning into like a slushy out there. This one though, if it's going to be like mid 40s, I got to imagine they're going to be able to really help, keep that ice solid, keep it cold, and not have to worry about too many issues with it.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be less of a factor than in most outdoor games. And I mean, we'll see what the coaches and the players have to say, because that's the cool part, is they get to practice on it
Yeah.
the day before. We're going to get the chance to ask them exactly what they
Yeah.
feel about the ice and what they think. So we'll see how much of a factor it ends up being, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's some of the better outdoor ice that we've seen.
Yeah, and oh boy, that'll make for an exciting game too, RJ. Just between these two teams, especially given how well the Kraken have been playing as of late. Why don't you let us know though? That's all the like game type stuff, RJ. But the NHL did finally release kind of some of the other stuff that's going to be happening, including the entertainment that will be there for this game. And boy, RJ, when it comes to the NHL and who they pick to be the entertainers at these events, they really know how to do it.
Yep, we'll just say that much. So some interesting entertainment choices, ranging from, Sir Mix-a-Lot to Hart. I mean, we'll start with Sir Mix-a-Lot. So according to the press release here, Seattle native Sir Mix-a-Lot will perform one of his most popular songs during player introductions. Now, Dylan, care to guess which song you think that'll be?
It can't
and which
be,
one
right?
we can maybe rule out?
I was gonna say, it's, at most you got like a 50-50 chance on that one, and then it's probably not gonna be the one that everybody first thinks of when they think of Sir Mix-a-Lot. Although, RJ, how great would that be? That would just be insane.
You want to talk about a viral moment for the NHL?
Yes.
That one, everyone's gonna be hearing that one.
Oh man, that's some good stuff. Yeah, but I just love how they always pick contemporary artists for these sort of things. And I like
Hart,
yes,
definitely.
But like, this is your big marquee, biggest event of the regular season. Always gets me.
Yeah, I know. It definitely feels like these are always, 30 or so years out of date, at least when they chose. I mean, look, who performed it? So at Dodger Stadium, we had Kiss.
Just,
Kiss.
Yeah, definitely fitting in the 70s.
I mean, they were promoting their new Arena League football team, the LA Kiss, which is why they were doing it, but still.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I got to imagine some of that's got to be Gary, though, right? Gary Bettman. We know from interviews. I mean, this is one of the few times you can get Gary Bettman to talk to the media as if you ask him about 70s rock. Because he's a big 70s rock guy. I mean, he'll tell you about going to see like Jimi Hendrix back in the day and all that kind of stuff. The longest interviews I've ever seen with Gary Bettman are him talking about music of that era. And so I got to assume that the reason these bands always end up in these things is because Gary Bettman's involved.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, look, who was it at Levi's Stadium when I went? It was John Fogerty.
Yeah,
who is just checked 78 years old now. So that's the kind of choices they make. But Sir Mix-a-Lot will be fun though.
Yes,
I do think Sir Mix-a-Lot will be fun, even if he's not from our generation.
Yeah, he will get the crowd. He will get the crowd going. Everybody's going to be happy. He's a fabulous entertainer. I mean, Hart's good too. They're great at that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just always kind of funny how that ends up.
Yeah, and I bet the song's going to be Posse on Broadway though, because they play that before every Kraken game anyway. You'll feel like you're at a Kraken game. If you go to a lot of them, that'll have some familiarity there. So I bet you that's what the song's going to be.
That's a good question. I don't expect you to have the answer, RJ. How Kraken specific are we expecting things, right? Like, is this going to feel like a Kraken home game, or is it going to be a little bit more neutral because it is such an NHL league-wide event? Like, what are your expectations for this? Do you think that we're going to be getting a lot of Kraken-centric graphics up on the video board and stuff like that, and music choices? Will we be getting the goal song if the Kraken score, right? Like, I think these are some interesting questions. I don't know that you have answers, though.
Right. I don't have definitive answers. For the goal song, I would certainly imagine that they would. I mean, at the two outdoor games I've been to, right, they had the goal song, right?
Yeah.
For the home team. That seems like kind of par for the course. And I do think they are going to try and tailor it, because maybe more than a regular outdoor game, because it's Seattle's first, because this is really kind of a milestone here for a newer market. Mm-hmm. I think they're really going to want to lean into the Seattle element of it. So I think we'll see a lot of Kraken specific things, as opposed to, an outdoor game. Let's say if it's, Boston and Phil or Chicago again, against like Detroit somewhere, it's going to be more of a league event. But I think, in this case, it's going to be more Seattle based.
Yeah, I certainly would enjoy that and look forward to that. Anything else about the Winter Classic you want to talk about here?
Yeah, so there's a few more things as far as like the office entertainment. I just want to say they've got for the national anthem, they got Nikhil Baga, who's 14 years old, guitarist. Like, he is awesome on the guitar. Yep. He's done the national anthem a couple times at Kraken games before, and like really gets the crowd going. He can only 14-year-old kid, but man, he can shred. So that'll be really cool. That'll get everyone going. There's going to be a flyover featuring two MH-60S Seahawk aircrafts to the Naval Air Station, Whidbey Island search and rescue unit. So that's cool. A couple helicopters going over there. And then the second intermission. So I thought this was interesting. They're going to do a tribute to Seattle sports with appearances from, some Seattle sports athletes. You got Jamal Crawford, Matt Hasselbeck, Walter Jones, Steve Largent, Marshawn Lynch. I mean, you have to have
Yeah.
him in there, right? Edgar Martinez, Isaiah Thomas, Lenny Wilkins. You're going to have a lot of great names in Seattle sports there, which I think it's cool that they're, again, leaning into the Seattle side of things. And I was hoping there'd be, I see some Mariners there. I was hoping there'd really be like a Mariners themed
Yeah.
something, right? Lean into it being into their ballpark, but it seems like they're going with Seattle sports in general. Not a problem, but I just was really hoping like a Mariners type thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've talked about this in the past. I still think that could have been a good way for them to promote this whole event would be to incorporate the Mariners back while the Mariners were still playing, right? And you can get some current Mariners in there and involved, right? Julio would be cool to see there and stuff. But I also understand baseball's a grueling schedule, so for the current guys on the team, yeah, let them enjoy their off season. I understand that one for sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Help isn't coming next year, so let them enjoy the off season before next year starts.
Oh man, yes, this might be the most exciting. I did see that on Twitter. Somebody saying, "Wow, I'm really happy that the most exciting event to happen at that ballpark gets done and out of the way on the first of the year."
Oh man,
yeah.
Sorry, Mariners fans.
Yeah, it's like we all know. Like we all know, it's fine. All right, so that's all the good Winter Classic stuff, RJ. Just can't wait for it. I fly up in just a couple days, 2 days actually. Get up there, and then, oh man, the media schedule is daunting, we'll say. When they sent that email finally to us, it's like, oh,
it's
okay.
nonstop.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, including those two opportunities to meet up with everybody. Really looking forward to it. Now, as we transition away from that, RJ, we talked a lot about the stuff, the hoopla around the game. But when it comes to the game itself, RJ, right now the Kraken are playing some of the best hockey that they've played all year long, right? And so they're going to, they've got 2 games before then, but hopefully they're able to carry some of that momentum over into the Winter Classic, as they're currently on a 6-game point streak, winning 4 of those 6 games, RJ. They're just playing really well right now, right? Pick up 3 points against a good team in the LA Kings, beat up on some other teams, survive a Zegras Michigan goal, right? And they're just playing, I think, RJ, their best hockey this year.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how you can really argue with that, given the point streak that they've put up and how they've done previously. Tonight, they'll have a chance to go for their first 3-game win streak of the season, which I think would be huge for them to kind of bust through that barrier of being able to string more than 2 wins together. But you know what? They're collecting wins, they're collecting points, and they're getting themselves back into the thick of things in the standings. And that's really important because, I mean, they're playing the way we know they can play. We had this debate over and over again. Are they a bad team? Are they actually a bad team? We're seeing flashes of brilliance. Can they string that together? Can they find that consistency? Can they find those 60-minute efforts? And they've shown over the last 6 games, yes, they can do that. We know they're capable of this now, and missing some of their better players as well. So it's a good sign going forward. I think now you just start kind of that long climb back into the standings, because it's not going to be easy. You're not going to get right back into the top 3 in the Pacific quickly, but you have a lot of work ahead of you, but they've shown they can do that work.
Yeah, they have. And oh man, it's been really rough as I start standings watch. And, you look at the other teams that they're involved in this wild card hunt with, right? The Coyotes, the Blues, Wild Flames, Oilers. I swear, RJ, Kraken finally figure it out, and every other team just continues to go on a win streak. Like the Kraken have essentially, despite turning things around, collecting a ton of points, they're not making up any ground really, just because everybody else continues to compile points as well. It's that could be a little bit frustrating, but it's one of those things. If the Kraken are able to just continue on this pace, continue to accumulate points, they'll be fine in the long run. I refuse to believe the Coyotes, Blues, or Wild are going to win out the rest of this year. It's not going to be a problem. But it is just one of those things, like right when the Kraken turn it around, you want to get all excited about things, and then you look at it and it's like, oh, well, they're still 6th in the wild card hunt.
Yeah, I mean, you've dug yourself a hole. You can't just leap out of it 10 feet, immediately. It's going to be a long journey, but again, slow and steady wins the race. And, it starts tonight against Calgary too. That's the team that's right in front of you in the standings.
Yeah, you're tied with them at 33 points. They've got one game in hand. This is going to be a big one for the Kraken tonight at the Saddle Dome, RJ. Second oldest rink in the league.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do we say third oldest?
Okay. This would be a good one. We should ask Kraken fans this one, I think, right? Like this would be the appropriate audience to ask about it, right?
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. So Dylan and I, we were looking at the after the Red Glare podcast. No, during the Red Glare podcast, actually,
Yeah.
we were talking about the oldest rinks in the NHL. And so I knew that Madison Square Garden, of course, like last I looked it up, was number one, much older than the other rinks. But it's historic. They've renovated it, all that. And I knew that the Saddle Dome in Calgary was number two. But then I went back to look it up again to see who was number three. And I went onto the Wikipedia page and I sorted it again by, opening date. And there was a new number one, actually. It was Climate Pledge Arena. Because I guess if you take the old Key Arena back far enough, right, it was opened earlier than Madison Square Garden. So I guess question to all of you, and let us know in the comments, does that count? Should the Kraken be viewed as having the oldest arena in the league? It doesn't feel that way to anybody who's been there, obviously, and it's very different. But I mean, I guess, Madison Square Garden's been renovated a number of times. So what do you think? Is it the oldest in the NHL?
Yes. It's an interesting question because like there's renovations and then there's like, tearing it down to a dirt lot and building back up again.
Just lifting the roof off, putting it back up on top when you're done.
Yeah, because that's essentially what happened here. And so it's an interesting, like, how do we go from here? But I am curious to hear Kraken's and Seattle fans take on that, because I think that's a really interesting idea and for the Kraken to have. It just sounds wrong. Like, I don't know. I'm just in camp. It's not just because it just sounds wrong for the Kraken to have the oldest barn in the NHL. Okay, so back to the Kraken. They're playing well. They're on the 6-game point streak, and one of the reasons for that, RJ, is the instant chemistry that Tomas Tatar has with the Matty Beniers line. Right, like they are playing fantastic. Matty's on his second 3-game point streak of the season. Tatar's picking up points and scoring goals. Jordan Eberle's, getting back on the board. It's kind of helping to wake him up. How big has this Tatar trade really been for the Kraken? Because at the time it felt like, okay, they're dealing with a ton of injuries. Bring in a guy who's struggling somewhere else. Maybe just the change of scenery gets him going. I'm not sure I expected this, right? This level of hitting the ground running.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was thinking it's a good low risk trade because you're only giving up a 5th-round pick. It's a guy who's kind of having an off year, right? But through 4 games, he has 4 points with the Kraken, and the chemistry with Matty Beniers has been incredible. What they've been able to do in such a short time that really no other player has been able to do with Matty Beniers this season, and kind of get that line jump started. And I do wonder how much Ron Francis looked at it. I'd be really interested to know. He'd never tell you, obviously, what his exact thinking was behind the trade, but you could look at it from the direction of, okay, we need goals and we need cheap goals. And here's a guy who's been a 20-goal scorer. He's having a down year. We can acquire him cheaply. It's that simple. But also, I mean, look, as a GM, you're consulting with a scouting staff. You're consulting with people who are probably going to know, okay, this is the way that Matty Beniers plays, the way he likes to play. We can try and find somebody who's kind of tailor-made to fit that chemistry-wise, how Matty Beniers plays. And I'm sure this is an NHL team with a full scouting staff. I'm sure there was some deeper thought behind it, but you wonder just how intentional it was, because the chemistry, it's been like they've been playing together for a long time.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 4 points for Tatar in the 4 games. You look at Matty Beniers, and I mean, he's rocking 5 points in his last 3 games. Just like, insane for him this season, right? After he's been struggling so much. But they look like they were meant to play together. Right? It looks like they are there together. I mentioned this when the Kraken kind of made that shakeup to how they were playing, what their style of play was, as they went away from that whole kind of clumping up in front of opposing teams' nets and hoping for tips, hoping for redirects, all that kind of stuff. That when you go to a more creative, free-flowing style of offense, you're going to need to rely on chemistry. And we knew the Yanni Gourde line had chemistry. We knew that existed for them. We knew the kind of guys that Alexander Wenberg plays better with, and who they could be with. And we knew that with Matty Beniers, he was going to be the kind of player who's going to want to be able to take a look around the ice and then make a play, right? That's what he needs. He needs to be able to pick his head up, look around, make a play. And the Tatar wasn't the kind of player that originally I would have thought would help with that, RJ, right? Like, I don't think of him as, say, a big body who's going to go in and give his center space, right? That's certainly not his game. But what he does is he makes himself available. He opens himself up really well out there on the ice. He's always moving. He's always skating. He's always hitting these open pockets of passing lanes that will allow his center to get him the puck. And then once he has the puck, he's totally capable of making a play. And I think that's what we've been seeing a lot, and that instant chemistry has just done so much now that the Kraken are playing a style that can really use that, right? Like before, they just weren't really in a place to use the chemistry. Even with the Yanni Gourde line, it wasn't always there, not because the chemistry wasn't there, just because it doesn't fit, right, within that system. But now that it fits and it works, and you're seeing the confidence back with Matty Beniers too. Because that's the other thing we've talked about. He didn't look comfortable. He didn't look confident. You could tell that all that stuff was taking a hit from him. He absolutely looks confident now, RJ. I think of two plays in particular. The one, I believe this was in the Kings game at Climate Pledge, where he makes that big, long stretch pass to Jordan Eberle on the breakaway, right, to set up the breakaway, where it's Matty gets the puck, right? I believe he catches it. He drops it down, picks his head up, takes a second, makes the long pass, hits Jordan Eberle right, tape to tape in stride, allows Eberle to go in and do his thing. And then I think of the one where Matty, it's coming off a rush, Eberle breaks it out of the zone, up to Tatar. Tatar takes it in, button hooks along the boards, sends it over to Matty. Matty's got Vince Dunn coming in with him. And Matty, again, showing patience. He's in control now. He's confident. He's got the control. He shows patience, lets the Ducks defender go down all the way, fully commit to taking away the pass. That allows Matty to know what his options are. He's able to put a little bit of sauce on the puck, get it up over the Ducks stick, and right on the money for Vince Dunn to put in a tap and goal. We weren't seeing Matty Beniers play like that. We were not seeing him that confident, that in control of the game before this. And to see him like that, I got to think everybody's doubts about the kind of player he can be just vanish. Because when you see a guy make plays like that in the NHL, RJ, it just doesn't happen that often. And for him to look that comfortable doing it is really great.
Yeah, a little bit of sauce on that pass. I mean, that was slathered on. That's like you with the Buffalo Wild Wings sauce. I mean, that was an incredible pass. And I'm glad you brought up that Dunn goal, because it highlights, I think, for me, the biggest reason that Tatar works with Beniers is because Tatar, he's a controlled entry machine.
Yes.
And this is something that's been known about him. I mean, that's one of the reasons the analytics people love him so much, is that he's great at getting controlled offensive zone entries with the puck, where he can do something like button hook and find Matty Beniers in space and give a player that's skilled and creative like Matty a chance to make a play like that with the saucer pass. And so I think that's the element that he brings that really no other winger that Matty's had this season has brought. And I think what it also allows Hackstall to do in a grander strategy kind of perspective, right? When you're looking at line matchups. So the Yanni Gourde line has essentially become the first line time on ice wise. We've talked about this in past podcasts, and Wenberg number 2. And so the Matty Beniers line has kind of become the third line. That's basically how they've been playing. But that's been the result of them just kind of playing like a third line and playing, maybe not all that great. But now that they're clicking, they are a real matchup issue for other teams. Because if you have the Yanni Gourde line that can put your first line in check and make sure they don't get a whole lot done, the Wenberg line that kind of do a similar thing, how is your third line going to go up against a player as skilled as Matty Beniers with some talented players around him who are scoring and producing right now? It's a matchup nightmare. And so I think Hackstall can kind of continue to roll with this. And I hope that he does continue to give this line, other teams' third lines and get those mismatches going. But it's something the Kraken just weren't really able to do depth-wise previously this season.
Right. And, look, there's going to be stuff, right? I could see people, if they want to be downers, right, looking at Tatar's production and being like, look, he's shooting at 28.5%. Like, this isn't going to be sustainable. Yeah, but also, if he wakes up Matty Beniers and Jordan Eberle, who are shooting at 7.5 and in the low 6% for Eberle there, like, that'll even out, right? And that line will produce, and it's going to be good. I mentioned the kind of player Tatar is. I think you touched on it too, right? By him being a controlled entry guy who can take the puck into the zone, do a button hook. What makes that play work is he really sucks in the other Ducks defenseman, right? The other Ducks defenseman has to 100% commit to Tatar because he has that controlled entry. So when he button hooks and protects the puck from that second Ducks defenseman, that's what allows Maddie to have the 2-on-1, right? Like, that's just a smart hockey play. And that's something that the Kraken have been missing. Really, all of their lines have been missing this year, somebody who can do that. And so I hope that not just is he going to do that for this Matty Beniers line, provide more time and space to guys like Matty and Jordan Eberle and try to get them going. But I do wonder and hope, RJ, if maybe the rest of the team starts picking up on some of that stuff, if the coaching staff starts implementing plays like that for the other lines and just tries to introduce that as a concept, because I feel like that would really get a lot of people back on board with this team, RJ, if they stop dump and chase.
Yeah, I think so. Well, again, if you have a third line that's scoring and producing for you, and the fourth line's woken up a little bit too, although, they've had some injuries there. But again, if you're getting that depth scoring, it allows you to have a little bit more creativity with like a Gord line or a Wenberg line. Whereas before there was no margin for error and you had to be super safe and you have to dump and chase a lot because you're just trying to keep the other team off the board. Whereas now you have a little bit more flexibility to play with.
Yeah, and to be fair, that line was good at that. They were good at keeping the puck away from other teams. It was just they just couldn't seem to put it in. So that's all good stuff. I guess I don't think we did mention it, and this would have been since the last podcast, but we do know with Bellemare now, right? The latest injury, 4 to 6 weeks, broken leg, sucks.
Hate to see that for him. And again, he's a guy who's always willing to put his body on the line. He blocked a shot and that caused it. And, we've seen him nicked up from block shots earlier this season. It's a risky business, right? When you're out there throwing your body on the line, this is the kind of thing that can happen. But, he takes one for the team there. Hopefully he'll be back quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so that's been an element of this Kraken turnaround, RJ, that first line, the Tatar trade, all that good stuff. One of the other things that's been a big part of that been Joey Daccord, right? Joey has been playing lights out right now for the Seattle Kraken. RJ, .912 save percentage on the season. Unthinkable.
I didn't know that was possible.
I didn't know that the number could be that high for a Kraken goaltender. Like, it just doesn't look right. My brain is struggling to comprehend it even as I'm looking at it. But you look at his last 5 games, RJ. I'm just going to read out his save percentage. .941 in the last game against the Ducks, .977, .857, .947, .955. Incredible. He has been on fire. He's been everything that the Kraken have needed to break out of their slump. He's putting them in position to win games, collect points. He's making big-time saves, RJ, on breakaways. I mean, breakaways just seem like automatic saves for this guy at the moment. Just don't take him deep into a shootout, maybe. But, the breakaways look fantastic. The angles, he's doing a good job of, playing the puck responsibly, I would say. I mean, he's everything that the Kraken need and more right now. And it does beg the question, RJ, of when Grubauer comes back, what does this mean?
Right. It's an important question to ask because at least for the time being, it's Joey's net, of course. I mean, he has 8 straight starts at this point. I mean, they've really leaned on him with Grubauer getting hurt. This is the second year in a row the Kraken have had their backup really step up when Grubauer gets injured. And unfortunately, it's happened twice in a row, 2 years where Grubauer has an injury that looks kind of similar, keeps him out for a while. But I think when he comes back, you're going to see, at least initially, what you saw last time, where you remember, Dylan, last season, Martin Jones was playing really well, and Hackstall kind of kept going with him for a little while, at least as long as Jones was playing well. Inserted Grubauer in, maybe 1 out of every 3 games or so, but Jones still got a lot of starts that could have gone to Grubauer. I think you're going to continue to see that once Grubauer comes back. Joey's going to kind of be the lead goalie, and that's when the real question comes in: is once Grubauer is really ramped up to 100%. Is Joey going to continue to get those starts? And looking at Dave Hackstall's history, I think he will if he keeps playing this well. The reason that Jones didn't is because Jones kind of fell off a little bit. I think he got burned out. And look, that's kind of predictable given that, his age and his recent history with how he'd been playing. I don't know that we have reason to think that Joey was going to get burned out here or is going to, decline in his level of play. So I think Hackstall's going to continue to ride the hot hand.
Yeah, I think so. It sounds like Fuji's got some thoughts about this as well
Yes,
there.
he has opinions on the goalies, don't you, Fuji?
Yes, he does. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that that's probably what we're going to end up seeing. I think, look, long term, anybody who's going to be looking at this is like, oh, should Joey be the number one? Is this now Joey's net? Is it his crease? All that kind of stuff. Realistically, right? Grubauer's contract is what it is. He's being paid like a high level goalie. He's being paid like a number one. He's always going to be the number one while he's around and while he's on that contract. So at the end of the day, Grubauer is going to be there. He is. Fuji, go ahead. Talk about it. Talk about it, Fuji.
Talk about it. Now I'm holding him. He won't talk
Yeah,
about
no,
it.
of
But
course.
a reason to watch the video version of this on YouTube. At this
Definitely.
point, I am holding Fuji up for those just listening on audio, and now he's getting antsy, so I'm going to let him go.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dylan.
No worries. So I think long term, like this is it's Grubauer's net. It's kind of always going to be Grubauer's net just because of what the contract situation is, or at least until say the last year of his contract. Maybe then you start seeing things turn over and work towards somebody else. The question I have, RJ, as I'm trying to think about this as you're being dusted by his tail right now, it's very adorable. Is Grubauer really just like a playoff goalie, right? Like, could we see something, RJ, where the Kraken are, the tail is hysterical.
I'm sorry, Dylan.
It's fine. It looks like a big Kraken tentacle coming up out of the water.
I was just thinking that too, right?
Yeah. That's definitely what it looks like. Is this a scenario, RJ, where we might see something where in the regular season the Kraken have to rely on somebody like a Joey Daccord, but then as you transition towards playoff time, Grubauer starts coming back in. Grubauer becomes your playoff goaltender because, look, to be fair, RJ, looking at both of their styles, looking at what they've both done well at and what they've struggled with, Grubauer is the guy I would go in the playoffs. The playoff style game seems to fit Philip Grubauer a lot more. His career numbers would say that he is better in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. Joey Daccord, I feel like, is very much the opposite. I don't know that come playoff style hockey, Joey Daccord is going to be able to make, the saves that he's been making and stay as dialed in as he has been just because of what that means. Do you think that might be a recipe for success this year and even say next year, RJ, for the Kraken, where it's go ahead and kind of split them during the regular season, even lean on Joey when you have to, when you feel like Grubauer's just not feeling it, which, could be argued for this year, even when Grubauer's been healthy. It's been his worst year with the Kraken, believe it or not. You could do that, and then the last month of the season, you start going Grubauer number one, and then let him take the reins for the playoffs.
I think it's certainly possible. I mean, you know what? Like, I think when it comes to the regular season side of it, I think that's what every team really, unless you've got like, a Vasilevsky or a Shesterkin or something like that, I think that's what every team should do. You want to split your goalies and get that workload so that your goalie doesn't get burned out. I think that's really important to do. I mean, that's kind of my philosophy is you go cheap in net. You have a couple guys that are each, can play, right? And you kind of figure out who's the best of those two, just in that season, because goaltending is just so hard to predict. I mean, who of us had Jonathan Quick as potentially the best goalie in the NHL this year, numbers wise? I mean, you look at that and at the top goalies this year, and it's kind of unpredictable. So I think that's what you should do during the regular season is kind of go for that even split, make sure both guys are fresh. And then you can kind of work from there. And certainly given Grubauer's injury history, I think it's something that's worth talking about now, given that it's been 2 years in a row this has happened. He's over 30. This is something that can happen to NHL goalies. Like, it is brutal on the body, especially, that area of the body, right? Your legs, your groin, your hips, moving that way. It's not really meant to do that. And so goalies can kind of wear down over time. I think you have to manage their workload. And then you find a goalie who's, whoever's kind of going hottest leading up to the playoffs, and you give him a little bit more of a run. Personally, I don't mind if that's Joey. Like, if this continues where you have Grubauer playing how he had previously this season, and you have Joey continuing to play like this, I'd go with him and give him some more starts and prepare for him as your starting playoff goalie. I really don't believe in kind of having those allegiances. And I know you're saying that like over a playoff style, right, where you kind of scout for the other goalie and everything, Joey might not be as good. I don't know that that's really the case. Like, you look at, I mean, I'm trying to think of the similar goalies, right, that come out and play the puck and do that. I think of Mike Smith, who, he's had his good moments and had his bad moments in the playoffs, but he's certainly had good playoff runs in the past.
Definitely.
Like, you have goalies that can do that. So I wouldn't mind. I would just go with whoever's the hottest goalie at this point. And I understand the contract is going to dictate certain things. I think that's probably going to play into what they will actually do. But if I was the one making the decisions, I would just ride with the hot hand.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. I wasn't thinking so much Joey's playing of the puck or maybe, you know, the breakaway stuff so much as like Grubauer just finds a way of dialing in, right? Like when it is
He
that
can
low
elevate
scoring,
his game, yeah.
that low scoring style of game where it's heavier duty, right? Teams are forechecking hard. They're trying to get those pucks in deep, and they're trying to then try to generate something out of that. It just feels like Grubauer is more built for that style of play, which less and less teams are playing during the regular season now, right? We're seeing a lot of teams play very different now in the regular season, and it seems to be suiting Joey Daccord, but I'll believe it when I see it for that kind of more fast-paced, looser style come playoff time. Like, I just don't think that that's ever going to become a thing in the NHL. The other question, though, right before we leave this one, RJ, that I want to talk about is, how concerned should the Kraken be about Philip Grubauer? Because, like I said, he's having his worst season right now, right? He's not getting younger. His second season in a row with the injuries. I mean, do you think that the Kraken should start being, or Kraken fans anyway, should start being concerned about the long-term outlook on Philip Grubauer right now? Not just because he's getting older, the injuries are piling up, and I know that the numbers this year are most likely affected by said injuries, but that's part of it.
Yeah, it is. And well, like the injuries, yeah, those are real. They don't go away. And at age 32 also, it's harder to kind of bounce back from that. And with the term on the contract, 3 years left after this one, I think there should certainly be some concern there. And it's tough because Grubauer, I know we've supported him a lot, in the past on this podcast. And I still think he's got, a lot of good games left in him. But, injuries are difficult, especially for goalies. And again, my philosophy in that, right? I don't need to say it again. And term scares me with goalies, and injuries is a big reason why. And especially with older goalies, term scares me. And so, yeah, I think that's certainly a concern, because especially if we've kind of had this conversation with fans with Andre Burakovsky, where it feels like, okay, it's so difficult when he's just not really in the lineup, or only in the lineup half the time. That money is still being allocated there, and you can't really just go out and replace it very easily. If you have a goalie that's in that situation as well, that's maybe missing 15, 20 games a year with injury at least, it makes it a lot harder to solidify things in net.
Yeah, it does. And it'll be then interesting too, like after a year like this, Joey Daccord is under contract for next year, RJ, but you could start talking extension with him, right? Like, so it's going to be interesting how the rest of this year plays out, what Ron Francis is going to want to do in next off season. I think if you did see an extension done with Joey Daccord, I think that would signal that the Kraken do have those concerns as well, right? Coming off back-to-back years of Grubauer having injury issues and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, say Kraken are able to get back into that wild card chase, and Grubauer, is a big part of that come late in the year. Maybe we see things differently come then. It's certainly, look, I want that for Grubauer. I'm a big fan of his. He's a great person, all that good stuff. Big fan of the beer hall. Love that. It's just the unfortunate realities of looking at things big picture, and it doesn't look great right now anyway. Okay, so we've talked about that aspect of it, RJ. There's one more aspect of things from this 6-game point streak to be mentioned, and that's Ryker Evans. And Ryker Evans has been playing fantastic, RJ. He's come in, really helped out the team, stepped in for Justin Schultz, played well, had his first bad game against Dallas, right? First game where he looked like a rookie out there. He was making some rookie mistakes, kind of, costing the team in certain situations, struggled to hold the blue line a couple times, things like that. Next game come out, he's scratched for Justin Schultz. Justin Schultz re-enters the lineup, looks rusty, I think is the way to say it about Justin Schultz. He looked pretty rusty in that one. And then for that game in Anaheim, Ryker Evans came back into the lineup and played well. I think that spot's just Ryker Evans now. Like, I think we can just say that.
Yeah, I think we can. I was wondering how long the scratch would last, right? He had a rough game. You send him up there to the press box to kind of watch things from a distance and kind of take things in, which I think helped Ryker as well when he was in the AHL. I know he was playing games, but also just watching the Kraken games on TV. Like he said, he
Hmm.
would watch almost all the Kraken games and just having that perspective of it. But you never know how a coach is going to approach that. Some coaches, you have a bad game, you make some mistakes, and they sit you down for a week at least. And, that's kind of the message. But I do like that Hackstall put Ryker Evans right back in there, especially after Schultz maybe didn't have the best game and was kind of rusty. I think it shows the amount of trust that Hackstall has in his young defenseman, that he's willing to put him back out there, put him back out in some key situations as well. This spot is, I can't see him losing it really, unless he has a bunch of bad games together. But he played well against Anaheim, and he's just kind of keeping that run going. He brings this dynamic element that, the other players that you could put him instead just don't really bring. And I like what Schultz brings. He's certainly an NHL caliber defenseman,
Yeah.
but he's on the outside looking in right now. And given the contract situation, we were talking about it with Grubauer. I mean, the contracts can certainly be telling in situations like these. Schultz is up at the end of the year, and
Mhm.
I think you really have to start asking questions about his future with the team.
Yeah, and I think the biggest telltale sign for this, RJ, is still their average time on ice, right? Dave Haxtell's given Ryker Evans 18:05 a night. When Justin Schultz is in the lineup, he's getting 16:04. That's a big gap for somebody essentially playing the same role, right? Third pairing guy who also plays on the power play. That's a big gap for somebody who's just, stepping into the other player's shoes. So I got to think that also means that, look, they're looking for somebody who is a little bit more dynamic, who's feeling things a little bit better right now, who's doing a better job of helping generate offense, something that this team has struggled with. And I just think Ryker Evans has proven to be that spark in a way that Justin Schultz has just struggled to do this year. And I think that that's been a big part of it. And the fact that Ryker Evans isn't looking like a rookie on the back end, right? When they're having to defend, he doesn't look like a rookie. Yes, he's playing things very safe. He's playing very conservative. He's not taking any chances. He's not going to necessarily step up and make a big hit or do something like that. But he's keeping bad things from happening. And sometimes that's all you need your defenseman to do. And Ryker Evans is getting that job done for the Kraken.
Yeah, and I want to give some credit to Dave Haxtell here too, because I know he kind of has this reputation, certainly with like Flyers fans, of maybe kind of being bad with the younger players and
Mm-hmm.
not giving them the chance to grow and succeed. And certainly after Evans was healthy scratched for that one game, right? There were a lot of people that were like, oh no, you're going to do this to the young kid. You have to make some mistakes. You got to let him learn. I think Haxtell's handled this pretty well. He's
Yeah.
giving Evans the chance to play those big minutes when he's in the games. And then, a one game healthy scratch, I really don't have a problem with it as long as it's just the one game. And that's all it was. So I think Haxtell deserves some credit there for kind of sticking by his young player. And I think, maybe that reputation that Haxtell might have built in Philly, starting to change a little bit in Seattle.
I certainly think it should, especially after the way he's handled, say, Matty Beniers, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like in the past, bringing him in at the end of that first season, get him going, the amount of opportunities and ice time that they've given to Matty Beniers, right? First line minutes and stuff. He never had to do that. Like, the franchise wants that, right? He's the future of it, all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean that the coach is going to do it. So I really like that aspect of it. This would be the final question here for me on this one, RJ. This will also tie back around to Tatar being brought in, and I know that this is purely speculative, but how much do you think, like when it comes to a trade for a Tatar kind of guy, that Ron Francis talks with Dave Haxtell about it, right? Like, you were mentioning they have a good scouting department, they have good analytics people. I wonder how much of that really trickles down to Haxtell, and Haxtell gets the input too of, hey, what are you seeing from Matty? What kind of player do you think, we're looking at this guy. Do you think that would work well with Matty right now, given what he's struggling with, that kind of stuff? I'm always curious on that kind of behind the scenes stuff. And I know you don't have a definitive answer, but I always think that stuff's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they don't let me in on those conversations, but
Why not?
but speaking generally, I know there's a lot of communication though from all levels of the organization, certainly from Francis to Haxtell, and that connection there. I mean, they talk all the time, and there is, I can't imagine that Francis would make a trade like that without consulting Dave Haxtell and kind of seeing where he's going to fit into the lineup and, what Haxtell wants to do with a player like that. I mean, that's one of the benefits of this organization, where I think there's a lot of that communication all the time, whether it's from Francis to Haxtell or Haxtell to the players, or, these things can kind of get relayed up and down the chain pretty easily, it seems like, in this organization. And, that's always a good thing to have.
Yeah, definitely. I certainly appreciate that. Is there anything else you want to talk about, RJ, here before the Kraken, get things back underway against the Flames tonight?
I guess just checking Twitter here, Carson Rykov with a pretty nice move here to score against Latvia in the World Juniors. I'm sure you're going to have a lot more great World Juniors talk. Again, if you're not on the Discord, everybody, join the Discord. I mean, everyone's following all the Kraken prospects in the World Juniors and lots of good stuff. I'm sure we'll leading up to the Winter Classic as well. But yeah, I mean, that was a nice move, cutting to the net, driving the net, using his size. The future is bright, Dylan.
Oh, just to borrow from earlier, though, does it count given who he's playing against, RJ?
Yeah, well, let's see. What's the score? That goal made it 4-0. I guess we'll see if they get to 10 or something.
That's always what all the detractors want to use at the World Juniors, but I say, look, it counts, right? Like, it's still, you're playing against good players if you're in that tournament. It's a big deal. Really happy for him. He played himself in the first game up into like a more regular line spot. I had a feeling he probably would for this Team Canada. I don't think he's going to end up in the top 6 or anything for Team Canada. I said this on the Prospect Live chat where I did a World Juniors preview. So much of his game is defending the transition, defending through the neutral zone, all that stuff. Makes sense to me that them being able to see that, in game settings. I'm sure the tune-up game against Team USA helped with that too, seeing what he could potentially add to that team and what might be needed for them as the tournament goes longer. Team Canada, of course, got to assume they're counting on going to a gold medal game. I think Rykov's gonna come in and do really well in a bottom 6 capacity for them. Whether it's on the wing or at center, I just think that's what he's really built for, and not surprised to see him having some success. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's making his case right now.
Yeah, so really excited about all that. I've been recording all the games, gonna be doing, putting together highlight packages and stuff for all the Kraken prospects there to be talking about on the next Prospect Live chat once the World Juniors is over. Really looking forward to that. Everybody can check out the Patreon. Various links all over the place if you're watching on YouTube in the description below. But yeah, really, it's my favorite time of year, RJ. Not because of the holidays, but because of the World Juniors.
Yep, it's a great time of year. We got World Juniors, we got the Winter Classic, lots of stuff to look forward to in the next week.
Yep, definitely. All right, everybody, we're going to do one more shout out to Queen Anne Beer Hall. Remind everybody, 30th Winter Hockey Hall. Go there, check out all the cool stuff that Queen Anne Beer Hall has set up for that. And then we will be joining later on in the night, like you said, probably closer to around 9:00 in the evening. So, hopefully everybody can stay around and catch us, because I'd love to see everybody talk, hang out, like I said, have pretzels, all that good stuff with everyone.
Absolutely.
Yep, should be a lot of fun. And then also, stay tuned to socials so we can figure out where we're all going to meet at the Fan Fest on the 31st around 6:00. Should be a lot of fun for that. Really excited to get up there again, be around for the Winter Classic. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope to see you all there, and we will see you all next time.
Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons: Absurdly Sane, Alex, Alvi, Andrew, Anonymous, Anthony, Beef, Ben, Brad, Brian, Burnt Creme, Kat, Kaylin, Shazzle Dazzle, Chip, Chris, Christian, Cody, Connor, Coop, DJ Singletone, Duthin, Evie99, Eli, Elizabeth, Empty Net Hockey, Eric, Ethan, Evan, Fusion Mix, Gaby, Gary, Gregory, Harry Legionary, Helena, Habak, Jay, Jane, Jessica, Joni, Joseph, Josh, Joshua, Julia, Justin, Katie, Kepler, Kitty B. Kraken,
Leanne, Levin, Light, Lonnie, Maeve, Mark, Max, Maya, Michelle, Nick, Night Drop, Noah, Nunya, Paige, Paul, Rayanne, Randall, Rebecca, Ryan, Sarah, Scott, Sia Kraken, Sean, Sergey, Sergeant Pickles, Shannon, Shoeshine, Skeletal Tendency, Steve, Steven, Striatic, Tasty Kobold, Team 114 Chris, Ty, Wendy, Where the Slovakians At, Zame, and Zoe. Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.